Good evening, I'm Mahamtara with the newsmaking headlines around the world. The National Assembly Speaker meets with the Iranian Minister of Culture and Islamic Guidance. Turkey agrees to send 200 Kurdish Peshmerga fighters from Iraq through Turkey to help defend Kobani against the IS militants. Canada's Prime Minister Stephen Harper insists his country will not be intimidated by the latest terrorist attacks on his country. And EU leaders gather in Brussels aiming for agreement on carbon emission cuts that could make Europe a global leader in climate policy. In our first item, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al-Ghanem met today at his office with the visiting Iranian Minister of Culture and Islamic Guidance, Dr. Ali Jannati, and his accompanying delegation currently visiting the country. The meeting tackled bilateral relations and means of boosting them in different domains, especially the cultural aspect. The Deputy Premier, Minister of Interior and Acting Minister of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs, Sheikh Mohammed Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Subah, met this morning at his office with Al-Jahra Governor, retired First Lieutenant General Fahd Al-Amir. Sheikh Mohammed Al-Khalid tackled issues of mutual interest with his guest and underlined the important role played by the governors in implementing the state's development programs and schemes. Sheikh Mohammed Al-Khalid then stressed the significance of coordination among the ministry's diverse sectors for the sake of maintaining security and stability of Kuwait. The Deputy Premier and Minister of Defence, Sheikh Khalid Al-Jarrah Al-Subah, met today with the visiting head of the UK Trade and Investment, Defence and Security Organisation, Richard Panigwin, where they discussed issues of common concern, especially in the military field. The meeting was attended by the British Ambassador to Kuwait, Matthew Lodge, the Defence Under-Secretary, Jassar Abdelrazak Al-Jassar, Deputy Chief of the Army's General Staff, Lieutenant General Mohammed Khalid Al-Khidr, and other military officials. The Kuwaiti Association for Learning Differences, known as KALD, organized the KALD Distinguished Teachers Award 2014 ceremony to recognize the efforts and capabilities of teachers who collaboratively work towards helping students with learning differences in private schools in Kuwait. KALD is a social welfare association that works towards helping students with learning differences in private schools throughout Kuwait. Sarah Faris Club has more from the Sheikh Salwa Al-Subah Hall.
Under the patronage of His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, Kuwaiti Association for Learning Differences, or KALD, held its annual Distinguished Teachers Award 2014 ceremony to honor 3 teachers for their overall efforts in the education sector.
It was honored that I participate in the ceremony for KALD for the teacher that who's helping special needs. I was proud that I be with all the actually private sector or the government who was helping from 1 year. They are working on this ceremony to help the kids to take their better learning. Always I'd like to attend these ceremonies because I need they need support from the government, and we are supporting them. Hopefully I see more ceremonies and success from the NGOs.
Today we say that our dream came true. Now we are hoping that in the future more and more teachers will participate in KALD award for the distinguished teachers, and we are very impressed with the teachers who participated in this award, and we thank from your network, we thank all the schools that open their doors for us and encourage their teachers to participate. We thank the Ministry of Education, the private education department for encouraging us to do such an interesting project. And also we thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for supporting the NGOs, and also the UNDP for believing in that the NGOs can make a difference in developing Kuwait, especially the education.
After the supervising committee reviewed and evaluated the applications based on international criteria, they nominated 5 teachers from Manarat School, Dasman Model School, Al-Ma'rifa School, Fawzia Sultan International School, and Universal American School.
Well, actually, for this award, this is a unique project done by CAL, supported by the Emir of this country. And we know at CAL there are women who are really well educated, and they always volunteer to provide the best for our children with special needs. I think this is the first time, not only in the Gulf, but also in the Arab world, to really recognize teachers in this field. It means a lot to me. I've been teaching in this field for the past 23 years. It was a big journey for me, and you can never say that you are fine, you are a good teacher, because to be a good teacher means it's a process of an ongoing assessment, self-assessment. It's the belief of the kids that you need to work hard to let them shine.
The called Distinguished Teachers Award is a yearly award that is granted to teachers who exemplify the highest standards in teaching students with learning difficulties and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Kuwait Association for Learning Differences has successfully concluded their first annual Distinguished Teachers Award ceremony that was held for the first time in the Gulf region and the entire Arab world to honor teachers and schools for their unique and invaluable work. From the Sheikha Salwa Sabah Hall in Samia, this is Sarah Gleb reporting for English News.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said an agreement was reached today on sending 200 Kurdish Peshmerga fighters from Iraq through Turkey to help defend the Syrian border town of Kobani against the Islamic State militants. He was speaking after Iraqi Kurdish lawmakers on Wednesday approved sending the fighters. The United States airdropped weapons and medical supplies to Kurds in Kobani provided by Iraq's Kurdistan regional government. But Erdogan renewed criticism of the move, describing the main Kurdish force defending the town as a terrorist group. Fierce fighting resumed today in Kobani with reports that IS had retaken a strategically important hilltop 4 kilometers west of the town. Meanwhile, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said US-led airstrikes against the IS in Syria have killed 553 people since September. The UK-based group said 464 IS fighters, 57 other militants and 32 civilians have died. At least 37 people were killed and dozens more injured as 2 separate car bombs rocked Iraq's capital, Baghdad. In Baghdad's central district of Karada, at least 27 people were killed and 37 others injured after a car bomb exploded near a service station. A further 10 people were killed and 29 others wounded after the second car bomb went off across the street from a hospital in Sadr city. According to local residents, the blast took place when an explosive-laden car parked across from the hospital blew up. Israeli occupying forces set up checkpoints around the Palestinian neighborhood of Aisawiye today. The move is part of an operation to increase security in the wake of an incident in Jerusalem on Wednesday when a motorist rammed passengers at a train stop, killing a baby girl. There were minor clashes today as some youth responded by throwing rocks at security forces who responded with tear gas. Police believe the attack, in which 8 other people were hurt, was a deliberate attack. The car struck the train station near the national headquarters of Israel's police force. A police spokesman said the driver got out of the car and tried to flee before he was shot by a police officer. Canada's Prime Minister insisted his country will not be intimidated after a gunman rampaged through Parliament before being shot dead. Stephen Harper described the attacker as a terrorist and promised to intensify anti-terror efforts. The gunman shot and killed a soldier at an Ottawa War Memorial before entering Parliament. It came a day after another suspect killed a soldier in Quebec. Harper described that earlier attack as a plot inspired by the IS militant group.
Attacks on our security personnel and on our institutions of governance are, by their very nature, attacks on our country, on our values, on our society, on us Canadians, as a free and democratic people who embrace human dignity for all. But let there be no misunderstanding. We will not be intimidated. Canada will never be intimidated. In fact, this will lead us to strengthen our resolve and redouble our efforts, and those of our national security agencies, to take all necessary steps to identify and counter threats and keep Canada safe here at home. Attacks on our security personnel and on our institutions of governance.
Pro-environment activists gathered in Brussels today as European Union leaders gathered for a discussion on climate change at an EU summit later in the day. The summit aims to find agreement on carbon CO2 emission cuts that could make Europe a global leader again in climate policy. The EU aims to boost the use of renewable energy to 27% in the total energy mix. Europe's reliance on Russian gas has become a hot topic because of the Ukraine crisis, besides the climate impact of CO2. The leaders will also seek to boost measures to stop the spread of Ebola. From the time of its presence in Kuwait since 1964, United Nations Development Programme, the UNDP, enjoys a long history of partnership in support of the National Development Vision and Goals. United Nations Day, celebrated globally on the 24th of October, is an occasion to highlight, celebrate and reflect on the work of the United Nations and its family of specialized agencies. UN Resident Coordinator and UNDP Resident Representative Dr. Mubashir Riyaz Sheikh conveyed the message through an exclusive interview from UN House in Mishrif. Our reporter Ghinwa Jabouri has the details.
The UN and its family have been achieving phenomenal targets globally, where peace and security are among the countless humanitarian initiatives that the UN and its organizations embrace. United Nations Day is devoted to making known to peoples of the world the aims and achievements of the United Nations organizations.
I think you just sort of reminded the community, the world community, that we are living in very difficult times. We are living in very challenging times. And we're living in a time which is very unpredictable. And we're living in a time where you never know what's going to happen tomorrow, but more importantly, where we can have multiple challenges at the same time. And to a certain extent, I think that also, in a way, justifies the role and the contribution and the mandate of the United Nations, because this is the only global organization or entity which has the mandate to bring all countries of the world together on one platform to deal with a number of issues, the number of challenges, what you just referred to. Right now, the global community is facing Ebola, actually, as one of the major public health problems. But let's not forget, we also have a number of other conflicts, a number of other crises, a number of other developmental challenges,
Representative Dr. Mubashir Sheikh spoke candidly about the UN's global leadership in humanitarian initiatives. He spoke about the youth and the importance of supporting their aspirations, who hold the future in their hands, among other topics. UNDP Kuwait's theme for this year's celebration is celebrating the youth and humanitarian efforts of Kuwait.
This year, we have specifically picked a theme in Kuwait, really, looking at the youth and the humanitarian efforts of this country. And specifically, the theme is celebrating the youth and humanitarian efforts of Kuwait. And there's a specific reason behind it. Let me start by saying youth, why we are focusing on youth. This country's population is 60% comprised of young people. So they are the real source, they are real strength of the society. And some of them are doing a wonderful job really, but there is so much potential and there's so much to be done to mainstream them, to harness their efforts, to encourage them. And that's why we thought it is very, very critical to sort of focus on the young people, to give them the right kind of the platform, the recognition, but also encourage them, motivate them. And I'm really grateful to the Ministry of State of Youth and especially His Excellency, the Minister of State of Youth, Mr. Sheikh Salman Al Sabah, who has been a real champion for the cause. He is really standing up. He has so much, to offer, and he's trying to do so much. And I'm so glad that we are a partner, we are a supporter of what he's trying to do, and under the vision of His Highness the Amir, who has really put the youth at the top of his vision, really.
Some of the key milestones achieved over the years by UNDP Kuwait include facilitating the establishment of the Women's Research and Studies Centre in cooperation with the University of Kuwait, establishing the Kuwait Integrated Environment Information Network to enable the Kuwait Environment Protection Authority, launching for the first time ever in the Arab region a Junior Program Officers IPO initiative to enhance the capacities of young Kuwaitis, to name just a few. UN Day is commemorated globally on the 24th of October. This year, UN Kuwait is honouring and celebrating the youth and the humanitarian work of Kuwait. From the UN House located in Mishref, I'm Genwa Jaburi reporting to you for the English News.
ESRI Middle East and Africa Users Conference recently opened, seeing the participation of hundreds of companies worldwide gathered to share their knowledge on advancing GIS technology. ESRI's work seeks to combine the analytical knowledge of geography and technology to establish a more resilient and sustainable future. Reporter Badriya Saleh brings us this report.
ESRI Middle East and Africa User Conference recently opened, bringing together an array of companies to share the ever-shaping and development of geospatial technology. ESRI was founded in 1969 as a small research group focused on land use planning. The company's early mission was to organize and analyze geographic information to help land planners and land resource managers make well-informed environmental decisions.
Here in Kuwait, there's something special going on. I can't exactly know what it is. Kuwait many years ago formed a Kuwait GIS users group and organized a national GIS council. They put GIS into universities. They legitimized the profession of GIS with titles. They actually pay people to do GIS, which is important, right? To have a life. All kinds of things have come out of this organizational structure. We've seen press events, we've seen communication in the media, we've seen the education of executives. We're creating in Kuwait a kind of GIS literate society, and I believe that this will be very important for creating the future.
Well, we actually sponsors of ESRI this year, and because we are announcing a lot of new services in the marketplace, and one of the most interesting feature is the fact that we are actually providing the capacity to task satellite directly from the marketplace and get a picture of any place on the earth on the next day on your computer.
ESRI technology enables organizations to create responsible and sustainable solutions to problems at local and global scales with the assistance of GIS. A geographic information system, known better as GIS, is defined as a computer system designated to capture, store, manipulate, analyze, manage, and present all types of spatial or geographical data.
We are starting from 2009, and our project is beatuna.net, so all people and community can enter it and can do anything. By also it is benefit for the student, for the researcher. So I advise to enter our project to see our produce.
We provide services for configuring and writing applications for the geospatial platform that is arcgis.com. We provide a framework for users to download and start developing their own applications. It's pretty much like the Google market. We have little apps, except it doesn't run on your phone, it does run everywhere. And it is targeting the geospatial community.
From new users to seasoned GIS professionals and analysts, all ESRI technology users from the Middle East and Africa were encouraged to attend the conference and share and expand their knowledge on the ever-changing systems. The four-day event saw participation from companies all over the world and better hopes to share their products and have a better understanding of how technology is developing. At the Regency Hotel, I'm Badriya Saleh reporting for the English News.
Moving on to the local business news, where all the main indices of Kuwait Stock Exchange turned strong upon closing today's session, capping the week-long operations at the National Bourse. The KSX 15 index reached 1,190.77 with a gain of 21.1 points. The price index settled at 7,414.75, putting on 35.34 points, and the weight index also stood at 486.93, gaining 5.81 points. And in our final item tonight, the Embassy of the Republic of Georgia in the State of Kuwait held a ceremony to mark the country's Independence Day, celebrated on April the 9th, the second anniversary of the tragedy when the Supreme Council proclaimed Georgian sovereignty and independence from the Soviet Union. Georgia values the relations with Kuwait as it enjoys firm and consistent support from Kuwait and His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah for the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Sarah Farris Glob was there with this report.
The Embassy of the Republic of Georgia in the State of Kuwait celebrated the 23rd anniversary of its independence from the Soviet Union, with April 9th commemorated as the Day of National Unity and an annual public holiday in Georgia.
This is the 23rd anniversary of Georgian independence, and this is the 22nd anniversary of Georgian-Kuwaiti diplomatic relations. And I would like to note that Kuwait was the first country from the Gulf who established diplomatic relations with Georgia. Since then, we've been developing our relations to the benefit of both our nations. There is a lot of potential in strengthening and deepening these good, friendly relations that so happily exist between our countries. We hope to, and we are eager from our side to expand those relations, not only from the political point of view, but also from the economic, in terms of economic cooperation and in relations and contacts between peoples. We have very vast plans for that, and we hope that these plans would be implemented.
The April 9 tragedy, also known as Tbilisi Massacre or Tbilisi Tragedy, refers to the events in Tbilisi, Georgian Soviet Socialist Republic, on April 9, 1989, when an anti-Soviet demonstration was dispersed by the Soviet army, resulting in 20 deaths and hundreds of injuries.
Well, I'm honored that I've been chosen by the cabinet to represent the cabinet for this event. I convey our congratulations to the people of Georgia. The relation with Georgia is a good relation, is a very ongoing with a lot of progress, diplomatic progress, economic progress, and we have 7 agreements already between our two countries organizing. There is a lot of interest of Kuwaitis tourists to go to Georgia this year, and it's a growing number. We thank the Georgian government for all the facilities are given to the Kuwaiti tourists as well as the investors, which are now rapidly climbing in numbers. So relation is solid. There was quite a lot of visits between the two officials last meetings were held in the United Nations between the two foreign ministers. We're looking forward for the foreign minister to come to Kuwait, the Georgian foreign minister to come to Kuwait for further consultation and enhancing the relation.
Georgia has become very attractive for the international investments, and we hope that that Kuwait would be interested in making investments in our economy, and we hope that our relations would be updated from just bilateral relations to a full-scale cooperation.
As Kuwait and Georgia also mark 22 years of solid bilateral relations in several fields, diplomatic activity is expected to intensify with the upcoming visit of Kuwait's first Deputy Premier and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Sabah al-Khalid al-Hamad al-Sabah, to Georgia. With a host of officials, diplomats and distinguished guests in attendance, the Embassy of the Republic of Georgia in Kuwait hosted this reception to mark the 23rd anniversary of its National Day, which also coincides with the 22nd anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations with Kuwait, a relationship that is expected to prosper in the coming years. From the Crown Plaza Hotel in Farwania, this is Sarah Glubb reporting for English News.
For a chance to see our reports again, please visit our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News. Well, with that, we conclude our news bulletin. Thank you for joining us. Have a pleasant time. I'm Maham Kawa. Before we go, we remind you once again of our main top stories. Have a pleasant time and good night. The National Assembly Speaker meets with the Iranian Minister of Culture and Islamic Guidance. Turkey agrees to send 200 Kurdish Peshmerga fighters from Iraq through Turkey to help defend Kobani against the IS militants. Canada's Prime Minister Stephen Harper insists his country will not be intimidated by the latest terrorist attacks on his country. And EU leaders gather in Brussels aiming for agreement on carbon emission cuts that could make Europe a global leader in climate policy.